Obrigado por este convite. É uma honra em estar cá e falar com vocês hoje de manhã. You're the chairperson of this initiative, MOZEFO, Mr. Daniel David, the High Commissioner from the Republic of South Africa in Mozambique, my former boss, Mandisi Mpahwa, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Mozambique, Dr. Luisa Diogo, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start off by saying that it is a great pleasure to be here at this initiative. As you have said, I spent a lot of time myself personally in Mozambique. We often say on these occasions that such and such a place is our second home, but in my case I can say absolutely definitively that the place I have lived in the second longest in my life has actually been Maputo. I spent 11 years there, and so I do indeed regard it as my second home. I want to say that the history, of course, of our peoples and of our struggles for liberation are well known. Our destinies were inextricably interlinked as we struggled against colonialism and apartheid. Our destinies are inextricably interlinked as we struggle to promote economic growth, development, inclusivity, empowerment, and all of the other things that is part of our journey to liberate our people and to create a better life for our people. We are, more precisely at this moment in time, partners in the journey towards continental integration. More precisely, we are partners on a journey which we have defined as developmental integration. We have said that as we create a larger regional market, eventually culminating in a continental market, we're going to do this in a way that's going to support economic diversification, industrialization of our countries, because we know that only by moving away from being primary producers of one or other mineral commodity, which we may from time to time have the good luck to find, we need to move up the value chain, add value, diversify, and that is the way that we are going to raise living standards and promote greater inclusivity. We are partners in SADC on the journey towards the implementation of the SADC industrial strategy. And I want to say that we are going to be the new incoming chairs of SADC, and it is my earnest ambition that we come out, before we hand over the chair to the incoming chair the year after our chairpersonship, that we come out with an actual implementable industrial action plan. We also know that as we work on regional integration, diversification of our economies, that infrastructure development is critical, and infrastructure development in areas such as energy, power, transport, improvement of urban infrastructures, these are all central pillars to us promoting developmental integration. Because ours is not just a journey on trade integration, it's not just a creation of free trade areas, it's also a creation of the real economic capacity and supporting that with infrastructure development. I think as we go on this journey, as our two countries, it's probably quite important that we recall that bilaterally we've actually developed quite a number of learnings that I think can be taken into the bigger framework. So for example, a number of years ago, we developed jointly the Maputo Development Corridor. And that Maputo Development Corridor was based on and predicated on the idea that what we would do we would upgrade the road and rail communications between our countries. We would introduce things like one-stop border posts. and that this would be not just to deliver the infrastructure, but also to use that infrastructure improvement as a way of leveraging on other economic opportunities along the corridor in both of our countries. And one of the key anchors of that was, of course, the establishment of the MOZEFO plant in Maputo. But I'm also informed that over the years, that particular project, the Mozambican Development Corridor, has actually succeeded in attracting about $2.8 billion worth of investments. And I think that this is a good indication of the kind of approaches that we could develop together, but also with others, in, for example, the Northern Mozambican Power Development Initiative, which we think could also have similar catalytic effects on promoting and supporting investments beyond the actual infrastructure. As governments, our two countries, we've been involved in a number of initiatives to promote greater economic collaboration, and joint activities. So we have been having, and the last meeting was in 2015, where at presidential level we met together. I had state visits, and alongside the state visits we had business forums. We have on an ongoing basis, as the Department of Trade and Industry, we've taken a number of missions, and I'm going to explain more recently. They are being led by a new entity in our department called Trade and Invest Africa. But we've taken a number of missions to Mozambique. We have regularly exhibited in the FASIM trade fair. And I think that all of that indicates that on an ongoing basis as governments, we are trying to work to facilitate a stronger economic relationship between our two countries. We welcome this initiative by MOZEFO as an investor conference in particular, and I'll explain how it fits in with our ideas, because we are, as a government and as a Department of Trade and Industry, also trying to mobilize outward investments into the African continent by South African companies. At this stage, our figures tell us that there are 35 foreign direct investment projects by South African companies in Mozambique, a total investment value of 122 billion rand, and that these investment projects over the years have created in Mozambique about 11,000 jobs. So we have a base to work on. We have also a number of agreements, government-to-government agreements in place that seek to enhance trade and investment. This work, these agreements are being underpinned by work which is going on a continuous basis by our officials. One of the pieces of work that is ongoing, I should say, is that we believe that the 2005 Memorandum of Understanding on Economic Cooperation needs to be renewed and updated. We need to have an updated version, and that is something which is ongoing. In particular, we think it needs to cover new areas in investment, in infrastructure development, and in industrial development as well. There is the Development Bank of Southern Africa earlier this year undertook a joint technical mission to Mozambique to scope for investment-led trade opportunities in infrastructure. And work is underway, for example, of the revenue authorities on customs mutual assistance, and we're also talking about cooperation in the area of industrial policy. At the business level, we are continually encouraging outward investment missions from South Africa into Mozambique, and I'm pleased to say that we have a number of potential investments by South African companies in Mozambique. And let me just run through some of them. Tsoho Sun has announced a plan to spend about $30 million in the hotel to upgrade the hotel in Maputo. Nedbank is entering into the banking market by acquiring a share in the Banco Único. Tongaat Hewlett has plans to build a 17.5 million litre bioethanol plant near Maputo. Energem is developing a 60,000 hectare Japtrofa plantation at Bilen in Gaza province. And there's a titanium corridor sands project near Chibutu. And all of these are potential investments at various stages of elaboration. Let me say that the new unit that we have developed in the Department of Trade and Industry, which we call Trade Invest Africa, represented here by our colleague Zanelli, who's sitting at the table over there. This is based on a view that we have that as our continent begins to industrialize, as we move up the value chain, the profile of trade will change very dramatically. It will change from being one where South Africa, as the relatively larger and more industrialized part of the continent, but not sufficiently industrialized, I hasten to add, that South Africa supplies finished goods into other countries and that we have huge trade deficits with other countries. This will need to give way to a different pattern of trade in which several of us are producing components in value chains which will produce products which at the end of the day are products of more than one country. That's the direction that international trade is going, and that is, I think, the direction that our ambitions for regional industrialization are seeking to move us in. And so we think that as we industrialize and move up the value chain, there will be opportunities for us to enhance the value of our trade. If I look at our trade figures right now, what I see that we had a dip in 2015, both in our exports to Mozambique and also in our imports from Mozambique. There's still a large trade surplus in our favor, but the existing patterns of trade are still dominated by one or other primary product. I was even surprised to see that we are supplying primary products into Mozambique. And I think that moving into a new pattern of trade based on an increase in the industrial development levels of our countries, that's where we want to move. And so we think that what we need to do is to work much more closely, much more precisely on identifying investment opportunities that will stimulate new kinds of trade relations between our countries. And so Trade and Invest Africa is designed to have much more sectorally focused missions to African countries and looking at where investment can actually fit in much more closely with the transformation and industrialization efforts of our partner countries. And that work is beginning, and I think that you will see that as Trade and Investment Africa starts taking over more of these activities, you will see a bigger focus on us seeking to promote investment relations and outward investment by South African countries on the African continent. Let me say also that linked to that, we are seeking to reposition South African companies as partners and good corporate citizens in the markets in which they operate on the continent. Because we know that whatever brand they may carry as individual companies, they also carry, whether they like it or not, another brand, and that is the brand South Africa. And if someone sullies that brand will be damaged for everybody, even those who are not involved in sullying that brand in the first instance. And so what we've done now is we've developed and we've adopted a guideline for good business practice by South African companies operating in the rest of the African continent. And those guidelines have been signed at the moment on a voluntary basis by a number of companies. And the essence of those guidelines is that the companies that sign commit themselves to compliance with domestic legislation and good business practice. They commit themselves to adhere to the UN Global Compact, which means they pay their taxes and they don't engage in aggressive tax avoidance. There's respect for human rights. There's an application of fair labor practices. They are good corporate citizens and they're good partners in development. And I want to put this over because we showcased this at the AU Trade Week last year in Addis Ababa, and I think there was a positive reception for this, and I think that these are the two new areas. So we're looking at investment-led trade and also at good conduct by the companies that we're supporting. We're also looking, of course, to encourage a great involvement by civil society and looking at ways in which our partnerships can also involve strong partnerships in various areas to promote good corporate social investment and so on. So let me just say then, by way of conclusion, we have a base. We are partners on a bigger journey. And that as the South African government, we are looking to act in ways that support the industrialization effort and mobilize South African companies to invest in good projects on the African continent that can contribute to our common goals of industrialization and infrastructure development. We also believe, as I said right at the beginning, that we have some very positive lessons in our bilateral relations that we think we should draw on as we move forward in the future. I look forward to this initiative taking a concrete step further forward. This is fundamentally a private sector initiative. We welcome that, and we welcome also the fact that you will be having opportunities to meet with South African counterparts. We welcome that. We're supporting that. And let me just say that as the Department of Trade and Industry and as the Government of South Africa, we are in full support of the common objective of strengthening and building a new, much higher level cooperative relationship between our two countries. Muito obrigado.